Hi. Okay, it works. Awesome. Oh, man. Well, I thought I would be live right now for a completely different reason. Yeah. Spam rain sucks in the chat. And by the way, do I sound all right? It's gonna be a little lower because I don't want to pop out the mic or have a bunch of buzzing in the background. So apologies if it's too low or anything. But what's up? Yeah, rain sucks. Audio good. Awesome. Yeah, I'll even put it in there. Let's see, rain sucks. We should start out when we do the podcast this Wednesday. We should start out with that being what's spammed is just rain sucks. Rain tires? I don't think so at Daytona. I wish, but I don't think so. But what's up? What's everybody been doing on their unfortunate off day? Yeah. Hold on a second. I'm gonna add this into my OBS really quick so I can show you that it is raining in only Florida. So I think this is the right one. Hope I don't get myself in trouble here. Look at this. This is the radar for the entirety of North America. And outside of a bit of the West Coast and a little of Mexico, look at this. This is insane. Northern Florida is the only place getting consistent rain. Like, this is nuts to me. I don't know how the hell NASCAR manages to get this kind of bad luck. So it's just a NASCAR thing at this point, which is crazy because I was looking back and like when NASCAR had kind of its boom period and the real takeoff period in the early 2000s, it was very rare for there to be a rain out. By the way, definitely leave a like. By the way, we're well over 200 watching, which thank you guys for coming on in. But we're not even at 50 likes, so we got to up that up. Thank you to Justin for the 5. Watched the 97 and 93 Daytona 500 races. Reminds me of watching those races on ESPN Classic when they would marathon them prior to the 500. I remember watching a lot of those because that's how I got caught up in the 2000s on a lot of 80s and 90s races that were really big. And then when it came to like big races in the 60s and 70s, before I'd go to school, when I was like in kindergarten, first grade, around that time, Speed Channel would have like 2 or 3 episodes of Back in the Day on, which I missed that one too a lot. Let's see. Hey, Jarrett, what do rain and truck racing have in common? They suck. We'll talk a bit more about trucks, but if you want to get the full 40-minute rant, basically, or however long it was, we do have a stream of that, too. That was very much just a stream of consciousness in the moment. We'll talk about ARCA as well. But I put something out there for you guys, and I'll answer comments in the chat as well, and super chats and all of that, I promise. But I had put out something on my community tab, basically like, what do you want me to talk about? By the way, almost at 100 likes, and if you're new, subscribe. We'll be live after both races tomorrow, so that'll be fun. But I'd put out like, what do you guys want me to talk about? And you delivered. The biggest ones were, of course, the truck and the ARCA races. I guess I can talk a little bit about ARCA. Trucks I kind of went over, just the minefield disaster it was. But you know what? Let's have a poll. How about that? Let's start with the poll here. Which race did you prefer? And we'll just put trucks and ARCA. And from there, whichever one you liked more, I guess we can talk about. I think we'll talk more about ARCA. Like that, Alan. Trucks were awful, and ARCA was no better. Pretty much. Last time the Xfinity race rained out, it was 2004, Dale Jr. won. That was probably the most dominant speed weeks ever. Because Jr., I think, finished second in the shootout. Won his duel, won the 500, won the Busch race. That has to be, I mean, let me look at what his average finish was. I believe it's like a 1.3 divided by 4. A 1.25 average finish for the entire weekend. That was the height of the Dale Jr. DEI powerhouse at the super speedways back then. I'm asking what you preferred, and so far it's about 2/3 trucks to 1/3 ARCA. The thing with ARCA is like they are less, I guess experienced isn't the right word, but you're expecting less because it is that lower level. You got a lot of guys who are just getting in there as a one-off or getting in there, you know, because they have a normal job. I think one of them was like a pizza delivery driver on top of being a race car driver. And then you got the young ones coming up through. So like I wasn't as upset. The return of ARCA brakes, because for a while the ARCA Daytona race had the low car count, and you had the issues with, you know, the package being single file. I thought the racing wasn't too bad when they weren't crashing. But the return of old school ARCA brakes was really fun to see. Again, this is no shade at ARCA. I actually think ARCA racing has gotten a lot better over the last 3 or so years and doesn't deserve as much of the hate. But holy shit, some of the ARCA brakes in that race were vintage. I remember watching old ARCA races with my family as a kid, and just finding it hysterical how many times somebody would just run in full speed headfirst into a crash. But on the other end, I also remember like different eras almost of it. Like for the longest time, they still had so many of them in the old Gen 4, and now they have them basically everything from old school Cup, or old school as you'd call it, 10 years ago to 5 years ago Cup is used in the ARCA side of things. So like everything is reused, and it's something I appreciate about it. But I mean, it was serviceable, and that's all I asked from it. For the trucks, I think that just overall was just not fun in any way. By the way, I got a list of like topics and everything, so we got a lot to go over. We're gonna end the poll right here. 67, of course it rounded down, but basically 68% of you voted the truck race to be better. 32% of you like the ARCA race better. I think I actually like the ARCA race a bit better, but that's just me. I was just purely disgusted of the truck race. I thought that was terrible. By the way, we are closing in on 300 of you guys in here. And again, we'll be live after Xfinity and Cup tomorrow, and then on BFM's channel on Wednesday for the NWP. So that's going to be a lot of fun to talk about. Justin, thank you for the 5. I think it's your 5th super chat on both, or I don't know if they put the emoji up. I think that's what it is. I've seen your videos and noticed that you'd never done a Dale Jarrett video. Why is that? I've always liked DJ. I don't know why I haven't, because I like Dale Jarrett too. I mean, I share his name, and it ain't Dale. I don't know why I haven't. I should probably do one. I was thinking of doing a missing rings on him during the off period, when it's like 2 weeks, at the 2 weeks off in the summer. Working ahead and doing that maybe on the weekend that I run my marathon. I'm doing a marathon in July, by the way. But I should do a Dale Jarrett video. I'll write that down, because I've been watching a lot of 2000s races, and I forget how Dale Jarrett still was pretty competitive even in his bad years, per se. I've seen a lot of people talk about this, so I guess let's talk about it a bit. It is the 10-year anniversary of Junior's last Daytona 500 win, and the 20-year anniversary of the 04 500 win. I can't talk too much about the 04 race, and it's not because I have any, what do you call it? It's not because I dislike it. I actually think it's underrated. I think it's overhated is more of a better word. It's in Pennsylvania, so I don't mind too much. Talking about the marathon. But as for the junior 500s, I started watching in 05. So I didn't necessarily have, all that much to remember from it, because I really didn't watch it. Like, I remember it happening. I remember it being a big deal, but I don't remember the race that much. I also, how old was I? 6, I think, at the time. Uh, the 2014 race, I remember clearly. I was actually, my parents are down for the weekend. We're watching the 500, and we were just talking about it, and I remember because it was the rain out. We always had Daytona 500 parties instead of Super Bowl parties, usually just because our teams didn't make the Super Bowl. And we would have these Daytona 500 parties, and anytime it got rained out, especially if it was pushed to to Monday or really late on Sunday, we really couldn't have it. So we all went home, and I remember because it was my mom and I watching it, and it was that battle between the Roush guys of Biffle and Edwards, and then Junior racing them. And it was a nice duel between them. I know people remember the finish, and they should, but I always loved that duel, and I love the dueling aspect of super speedway races. It's actually one of the reasons why, while I dislike the way the Talladega race in 2015 finished that fall, I do enjoy it because there was that duel aspect between the Penske guys and Dale Jr. And I really think that when super speedway racing isn't just slam drafting, complete giant ass wrecks the whole time kind of racing, I do believe it is a very smart man's game. There's a reason the drivers that win the majority of those races still are incredibly good drivers. It has a lot to do with car, yeah, but I'd say with that one, what I remember the most was just I couldn't watch as like I watched the second to last lap after the tape had gotten, or the bare bond had gotten on Junior's grill, and as there was rain sort of in the area before that, but there was like that worry I had, and I'm pacing, and I hit the white flag, and I just paced down the hall. My dad, I think, is watching The Walking Dead at the time, and I'm like, I can't watch it. I'm like about to turn back to go and watch it, back down the hall to watch it. He's like, well, what's going on? I'm like, there's half a lap to go, and Junior's in the lead, and he darted over, and I think that was the loudest I'd scream for a Junior win, outside of when he won at Michigan when I was there in 2012. That was an awesome night. That was a really, really fun night. God, that it was not the greatest package. It was really good, but it was definitely not the greatest ever by any means. But it was a pretty decent package. The one that we have now kind of reminds me of that a little bit. So, thank you, Carl, by the way, for the $2 super chat. What Daytona 500 ending pissed you off the most? That's a difficult one, because I feel like saying the rain out in 09 is a cop out. I mean, I guess 2015 when they threw the caution, even though the leaders were well past the wreck, kind of annoyed me. I can't say that pissed me off. I'm like running through them in my head right now, like 16, 17, 18. I guess, and I know it's a famous finish, but I've always had a soft spot for Mark Martin, so I'd say 07. And I don't hate the finish, but I was so disappointed for Martin. You know, Junior had wrecked out. I also liked Truex a lot more at the time, and Truex had wrecked out. Up front, it was like Kyle Busch was up there. Harvick. I was take him or leave him on Kenseth, but I loved watching Mark Martin. I think I went on a rant a few times after truck races about how much I miss Mark Martin. So I guess 07, but I still appreciate it, man. Like, I really appreciate that finish and how good that race was. It was very spread out. People like to forget it was a very spread out race, but that was part of the fun aspect of it. There was that dual aspect. There were stages that changed it so much. I think that's really what I guess enjoyed most about it. So it's like I've really not been too upset. I guess last year's 500, I won't say it pissed me off, but it annoyed me. But I'm also in the minority probably of NASCAR fans nowadays who still don't care for green white checkers because it just seems like an excuse to wreck cars up. But again, I don't think I've ever left a Daytona 500 absolutely hating the finish. Because even 2013 at the finish, Junior and I think Mark Martin were the ones that were charging up and made it interesting with Jimmy Johnson. Mostly because Biffle and Danica wouldn't make a move. But that's, I guess, closest. Hunter Nixon Fishing for 5 says, the finish of the 2020 Daytona 500 pissed me off because we thought we lost Newman, and the finish overshadows a great race. Let's talk about the 2020 Daytona 500 because a lot of people wanted me to talk about the history of Monday Daytona 500s, which, if I'm not mistaken, there's only been 2, 2012 and 2020. There's been races that have leaked into Monday. I was at one, 2021, but I think those are the only 2. And I'm going to leave a poll in the chat of this one. And if I'm wrong, I'll put another poll up. But what is your favorite Monday Daytona 500? Not 50, 500. I believe 2012 and 2020 are the only ones. I was at the 2021, the 2020 Daytona 500 for the first 20 laps. A lot of 20s. I couldn't reschedule flights and didn't want to spend a ton of money. I think I'd been down in Daytona for almost a week at that point, and I was just tired of it, man. I was just tired at that point. Well, the 2020 Daytona 500 is a great race. It really, watching back on it, until you kind of get to those green white checkers, and I'm kind of in that David Land lane of just, they irk me, man. But I think it's a severely overlooked race for everything that happened before the last 1,000 feet. But I'm also, I also was terrified by that too, and that was a huge wake-up call, I think, for me as a fan. And I don't think I've viewed the sport the same way since. Just because I've been lucky enough, and I sincerely say lucky enough, to never see a driver die as a fan, and I hope that I stay that way the rest of my life. I guess that kind of leads us into what day it is. It is February 18th. It is 23 years since the passing of Dale Earnhardt, 2001 Daytona 500. And I had a lot of people ask me about what I thought about the 2001 500. I think some were trying to ask more just as a joke. Which, I'll answer clearly on it. I think the 2001 Daytona 500 was the greatest first 499 miles of a Daytona 500 ever. I think that if Dale Earnhardt either gets out of that car or doesn't crash, it is remembered as the greatest Daytona 500 ever. The racing was amazing. Dale Earnhardt was at his best. The DEI cars were starting their ascension to the throne of superspeedway racing. The Dodge storylines too, the new era with Fox Sports and later on NBC Sports. There was so much going on with that race. Brock Beard does an excellent coverage of it. While we share the title of YouTuber, that's where it ends off. I will always defer to Brock when it comes to NASCAR history and stuff like that, and same with Slap. He has an excellent series about it. But until they got into 3 and 4, I've watched that race twice because I was 3 or 4 when that happened. I vaguely remember the events around it and stuff about it, and I remember growing up knowing about Dale Earnhardt like that. But I don't remember ever watching it live. So I watched it because I wanted to know, and I wanted to broaden my horizons is the best way I can put for it. And I was amazed. Yeah, I've read Junior and others' books on it. There's so much about that race, but I wanted to watch it just to know like what happened in this race, like what was the lead up before it, what were the storylines going on with it, and you know, because I'd always heard people say that it was good, but you know, it's like, why, you know, good could it really be? Um, and so, you know, watching it, it was crazy to me just how different uh it was from what I thought it'd be. It, I mean, if you watch, like, there's home videos of the garage area both before, during, and after that race. Um, I mean, it's just a different world. If you've been in the NASCAR garage, it is so different from what it was back then. Um, but it's definitely a learning experience. I always pause it and turn it off though, as they once I start recognizing camera shots from documentaries in that race, I pause it and turn it off because I don't want to watch that. It's terrible and the worst day ever in NASCAR history. I don't think there's any way other than that to put it. But I also think the after effect is so sad, but also amazing at the same time. Like the years since, like 1, 5, 10, whatever you may be. I was at 2021's Daytona 500 on the 20-year anniversary. And even though there's probably, I mean, they claim it was a third full, but there's way more at the start. And seeing all those people with the 3 fingers up and saluting and the lap of silence, I mean, it's amazing. I'm getting chills thinking about it in person because of just how much reverence and respect he has as a driver. And I will forever, I know it was, you know, kind of like a meme back and forth during the podcast last year when we did our top 75 list. But I will always put Dale Earnhardt as the best driver ever. Just maybe it's because I've read into stuff about him and learned more about him than I would other older drivers. I'd like to think I try and stay unbiased, but that's probably a lie. Having grown up an Earnhardt fan, but it's just all of that is it's hard to explain into words. And again, I wasn't even old enough to fully remember and know exactly what was going on at the time. But all right. Enough of that. Let's get to a more, I don't know if jovial subject is the right way to put it, or at least present one, but let's get off this for a bit. I don't have a smart ass transition for it just because sensitive topic. Let's look at the poll. What is your favorite Monday Daytona 500? This is way closer than I thought it'd be, and I'm kind of happy for it. So it should be 54% say 2012 to 46 is 2020. Unpopular opinion. I do not think it's a bad race, but I think the 2012 Daytona 500, while having great moments, overall as a race is a tad bit overrated. People forget the drafting package back then was bottom line dependent, with it taking almost an entire fuel run for the top line to make their way up to the front. And then if they had anyone drop out of it, they immediately drop back. Whereas 2020, I think, was still a great package. I think it was more of a driver problem. I have seen Blink of an Eye. I love that documentary. It's a very good one. I don't hate that race. The moments are amazing. I remember that was, I believe I had broken my leg. I had broken my leg, ankle, foot, bunch of other stuff. There's the day before it was supposed to be run, or no, it was the Saturday before. Or no, what was it? I think it was the Sunday after the 2012 Bud shootout. So it was like a week before. So like I'm laid up in a cast, you know, I got like multiple broken bones and my foot is, you know, mangled to all the hell. And I went to my great grandmother's house because I couldn't be alone. My parents worked night shift. I think I was 14 at the time, 13, but I couldn't get out of bed on my own. So I needed help. And I remember because like it was a normal race, you know. I think that like the Iceman and Marcus Ambrose and a few others, like there were spins, there's, you know, things happening, but it was not like anything crazy had happened, right? And so we take the 5-minute drive to drop me off there. And as I'm hopping up the stairs, I get a call from my uncle who's watching the race. You know, I answer it. I'm about to open the door, turn on the TV, and he's like, "Did you just see what Montoya just did?" And I'm like, "No, I just drove over like 5 minutes." In the 5 minutes since I had left my house and went to my great-grandmother's, a caution had come out, and Montoya had hit the damn jet dryer. And so, like, I turned on the TV right, like, a minute after they'd come back from commercial to the track literally being on fire. And I thought he was joking. I'm like, okay, whatever. Yeah, okay, what actually happened? What, Junior take the lead or something? It's like, no, the track is on fire. Like, you gotta turn on the TV. You gotta see this. And yeah, the first thing I see turning on Fox is the track on fire. Turn 3 ablaze with jet fuel pouring down. You've never seen it all in NASCAR. Like that's part of the way I tell people, if they've never watched it before, like, watch a race, you'll love it, is because some crazy shit is bound to happen. Whether it's a damn jet dryer catching the track on fire, or if it's back in the day, like helicopters that had, you know, would help dry the track, or would, like, one of them ended up running out of fuel and landing in the track. Whether it's somebody running into somebody on pit road before the race even starts, something crazy always will happen at least once a year that you always remember. One of the worst races I can ever remember is the 2014 Richmond race, and I will always remember it for that drunk dude climbing up on the catch fence and just arms out cheering as cars go 140 miles an hour underneath him. There's so much crazy stuff, man. Yeah, I mean, like Noah Coleman said, you know, bring the effing fire extinguisher from Petty's last race. It's insane to me. It's insane, like, what stuff happens in these races, and the crazy stuff you will see at races. Some of which I will not describe on YouTube because I don't want my channel being taken down. I have learned way more about the human anatomy and the human body and anatomy than I ever wish to have inside a racetrack. As well as I've learned way too many ways of how people can destroy their cars on their own inside a racetrack. That I can talk about. I remember there was a dude at Chicagoland who was doing burnouts in this, like, I don't remember what kind of car it was. I wasn't paying attention to that. But he's like, I'm gonna call this the axle breaker, and he, like, starts, like, shifting through the gears and doing this burnout all the way down from, like, where the exit of turn 4 is, where they enter into the racetrack, and, like, emergency vehicles can come in and out of, down to where the tunnel is. And I just hear, like, this crunching sound and scraping, and the dude drives back, sparks coming out of his car. He had broke his axle, and it just, I don't know how the hell he was driving it. I mean, just crazy ass shit like that. Go inside a NASCAR track, like any track, basically Darlington size or bigger. Go in the infield, you will experience some of the craziest things ever. I have seen NASCAR higher ups, I guess I'll say, party with people and like do shots and different things like that. I saw a dude once that him and his friend were playing with a frisbee, and it was a metal frisbee. Like, it wasn't one of those plastic ones. It was like a metal silver frisbee. They're just flinging it, drinking beer the whole time. And me and my grandpa and my uncles, and I don't think my brother was there that year, but we were sitting on top of the RV we were staying in. You know, this is like 9 o'clock at night, and just watching it, because half the fun inside a racetrack is just watching the people. And they had these poles, like 6-foot poles set up. They taped beer bottles on them, and we're like, what the hell are they doing? They were trying to break the beer bottles off the poles with the frisbee. And they're just whipping it faster and faster and faster. Well, one of the guys gets distracted because he sees a girl he thinks is pretty and is talking to her, and his friend whips the frisbee right back. He turns, and boom, right here, right across his eyes, gets nailed. I mean, it looked like one of those people that gets like shot in the war movies, like just flings his head back, flies back. And he's like, oh, I think I got hit a little bit. He's already like, looks like a raccoon. He looks like he has the mask from The Incredibles because it's just everything around his eyes is bruising already. I mean, just things like that are just normal in a NASCAR infield. And no one gets seriously hurt. So it's funny. Like, it's funny in the aftermath, you know? I have been to Talladega. It is wild. I have heard stories about that. We actually had, back when Randy the Plumber was still pretty big on the TikTok side, we had him on the podcast. And he was talking about the first time I think he took his son to Talladega Boulevard. And I will not repeat that one. Did he get the girl? No. No, I don't think it was his girl either. I think like that. I don't know. I don't want to accuse anybody, but it was he did not he got a ride to the infield care center is what he got. Yeah, that's yep. Okay, you guys saw that podcast. Hello from Russia. Wow, from Canada Country Ball. That is interesting. Nice to see you. MVR owner, sounds like I shouldn't ask a girl on a date at a NASCAR race. Oh no, you should just be aware of your surroundings. Which longtime viewers will know that meme, and no one other than a few people that are like in my group will ever know the origins of that meme. But be aware of your surroundings. Let's see. Wasn't Randy involved in some sort of controversy? Probably. Randy was a character. He was fun to have on though. Yeah, be aware of your surroundings. Yeah. What is up, everybody? I'm surprised so many of you guys came in. Like, I just impromptu did this today. I like talking. But wow. By the way, sub if you're new. We're going to be talking about Xfinity and Cup later on in this. I'll get to a few of these super chats really quick. I apologize for making you wait on those. You guys in the chat are fun. At some point, I'm gonna see if I can get an animator to just like a 2D animator maybe, and make videos out of some of the crazy ass stories that I can talk about at racetracks. Can we get a Leroy Jenkins in the chat? Yes, yeah. Somebody put Leroy Jenkins in the chat. Why not? But I'm definitely gonna be doing that at some point. Definitely need to make a video on some of the crazy stories. There's some I can't tell, or at least not for a while, without permission from a lot of people. But there are still some pretty good ones I have on up my sleeve that we definitely will have to put out there and have some fun with. Like, people need to know some of these crazy ass infield stories. How I remember somebody had a gas powered RC car that he was doing flips with. And he ended up hitting a reporter's car with it. And it wasn't like this thing was, it was one of those like, little whiny electric ones that goes like 5 miles an hour if you have it on a perfect, pristine surface. But it was like a Hummer as an RC car, gas powered. This is probably 2007 or 2008. It was right around when the COT was coming out. And this dude was just going back and forth. I mean, it had like black exhaust smoke coming from it. And they set up these jumps right next to the media parking. And I only know now it's media parking because I have since parked in lots like this. And he did a jump, and it went right into some media member's Impala. And it smashed the light out. And I'm pretty sure it was probably a rental. At that point, just everyone dispersed. Like, it was like watching people, like watching, if you ever see like an exterminator video and you watch like roaches just all run away, or like that's what it was like. But it was funny as hell. God, there's some crazy ones. Crazy enough, and this is one thing I thought I'd see at a race. I've never seen a fight at a race. I've never seen one. I always thought I would. I've seen people mad at each other before, but I've never seen a Rock'em Sock'em one with fans, I should say. I've seen it. I was 20 feet away from the Noah Gragson Ross Chastain one at Kansas this year, but I've never seen fans go at it before, which I'm so surprised. I'll tell you, it was funny because I was like, I think I was near Larson at the time with the Gregson Chastain one. I'm trying to remember exactly because I wasn't doing an interview at that point. I think I was like just getting set up, and I just hear this like smack sound. And immediately I'm like, somebody just got punched. Like, where's that guy? Oh my God, they're watching him go at it, and that point, like you can see me actually on the broadcast. If you look back at the replay, there's a guy with like a blue polo and jeans who's following with Noah. That was me. So I was like right there the whole time, and that was crazy. That was crazy. Yeah, Nicholas, story time is pretty fun. I like having story time. Hi from Cleveland, Texas. I've never heard of that. I've been to Cleveland, Ohio. I've never been there. There was a fight every year when you went to Chicagoland Speedway. I never saw it. Of course, I was also, I wasn't even a teenager for most of the years I went to Chicago early on, so it's probably why I didn't. I remember walking through in 2008 or 9. I think it's 2009. The Goo Goo Dolls were playing. And at the time, I didn't know who they were, even though I ended up like loving 3 or 4 of their songs and having them on my phone. And oh, one second. Yeah, and but I didn't know who they were at the time because I was like 12. But all the drivers were leaving right after qualifying, and I would have this book I'd make of all the drivers' profiles. Like, I'd have their number, the color of their paint scheme in the background. Some were good, some were pretty awful, but I'd have them sign it. And I'd spend the whole year making this book up. And I was just walking right in the middle of traffic because it was a huge traffic jam of everybody, drivers, owners, everyone trying to get in there to meet him. And I got to meet Brian Vickers and get his autograph right after I think he won the pole. So that'll tell you the year. Whichever year Brian Vickers won the pole or was on the front row or something, I believe it was 09. I got to meet him, and I thought it was pretty cool. GN NASCAR fan in the chat saying, did you hear about the new podcast MRN is releasing about the 2004 season? Releases tomorrow. I did not hear about that. I'd be very interested. I probably shouldn't say this as somebody who is on a podcast every week. I feel like the online media space for NASCAR is somewhat oversaturated. I don't think it is to the point that like people on Reddit will complain it is. Oh God, no, I do not, Andrew. No, I do not. I do not want that flying around. The last thing I need is allegations. But I do feel like there is a bit of oversaturation going on. I don't know if it's too bad. But I'd be interested because 2004 is one of those very rare, great seasons, no matter which way you look at it. So I'd be very interested in it. Yeah, I do agree. I like Three Doors Down over Goo Goo Dolls. That was actually Three Doors Down was my first concert. I've seen them 2 or 3 times, but I saw them in 2011. So, thoughts on Deegan this year? I just hope she improves. That's it. What's up, Darian? Only one caution in my sim, so calling it for tomorrow. Well, that will go against your that would go against your write that down prediction for the podcast. I believe you said there would be 10. I actually got one right. I already predicted that a Crown Jewel would be, at least one Crown Jewel race would be delayed by rain this year, and I got it right in the first week. So I hate being right. I feel like Ian Malcolm in Jurassic Park. Justin, thank you for the 10, by the way. For me, I didn't get pissed off at finishes, just disappointed at the caution finishes. 97 and 98, while great races, I would have loved a green flag finish. Yeah, I can respect that. Even as somebody who's okay with races finishing under caution, like I understand why people are upset, and in the moment, I would be too. I get it. Yes, spared, no expense. Let's see. Carl Singleton, thank you for the 5. I respect you for being smarter than most NASCAR fans. I don't think I'm smarter than most NASCAR fans personally. I appreciate the compliment though, but I think I have some pretty brain dead takes every now and then. I appreciate that I am smart enough to realize that I am not as smart as I might think I should be. I don't know. Well, but I appreciate the compliment either way. Hunter Nixon Fishing, thank you for the 5. I can't wait until Daytona gets truly worn out and goes back to handling becoming a major issue and the cars bounce hard in the corners. It's starting to definitely get that way. I think in the next 5 years, you're going to get that really bumpy, handling heavy Daytona back, especially if they continue to improve the package. And Andrew for 5, my 01500 is a 2011 Vegas Indy race. Dan Weldon was my IndyCar driver, and I've seen the race a couple times. It still hurts to watch now. I remember that. I watched that live. That was one of the first IndyCar races that I was planning to watch flag to flag, you know, because I'd watched a few every now and then. But, yeah, that was unfortunate. Are people still allowed to camp in the infield tomorrow? Yes, and I believe if it's like other rain race policies I've been around, basically what NASCAR does. So, word of advice, one, go to at least one race in the infield, whether you're camping in your truck, rent an RV, have an RV, whatever it is, sleep in your car, whatever you have to do. I recommend that a ton. When it comes to rain races, what they basically, the policy is for camping in the infield is they give you till Tuesday, I think at noon to leave. Like by Tuesday at noon, you need to get the hell out because they need to clean it up, get it ready for either the winter, the next race, whatever event they might have. I know they did that at Talladega. I know they do it at Chicagoland. They did it at Michigan. I mean, those are all ISC tracks. I don't know if SMI is different. But you generally can stay the next day, whether it's to sleep off, you know, the absorbent amount of alcohol many have, not to drive with a hangover. You know, it's I think it's partially like a safety policy, rain policy, whatever it might be. You're allowed to stay for the race. But I would say go in the infield at least once. It is so fun. You know, Blue Jimmy's talking like that is unique for IMSA at Watkins Glen. Like, have a designated driver with you, but some people don't. Some people go on their own. I mean, I've went to a couple races on my own, and it's a weird experience, but it's definitely, I'm glad I did it. Man, I gotta fix my voice if I'm gonna be talking this much. A few other topics people brought up. Other motorsports. I don't know exactly what you want me to talk about. I'm not as specialized when it comes to like open wheel, other motorsports like that. I don't know about other people, but I know that I am planning to be at the fairgrounds on Thursday, June 28th. It's right before the Nashville Super Speedway weekend. I am fully expecting NASCAR Cup Series Xfinity truck drivers to be there. So definitely, I mean, when it comes to local short track racing, support the fairgrounds. There's so many idiots against it. Just keep supporting it online, in person, definitely. Cars Tour over ARCA. I like the Cars Tour. I don't get to watch it that much, though. The IndyCar finale being at Nashville, I feel like that's a double-edged sword in a way. I like it as a hardcore racing fan because I think their oval racing is really good, and the finale should be there. Or it should be at least on an oval. But I'm telling you, I don't think the TV ratings are going to be all that good, man. Like, I do not think it's going to be all that good, just compared to being in the streets of Nashville itself, having that hype behind it. But I'll say this, for all those people really excited about it, I do not want to see a bunch of bitching if the TV ratings are down, because fans need to put their money and eyes where their mouths are. It's up to y'all now, basically. I mean, I'll have it on one of my screens while I think, what is it, the Watkins Glen race is on that same weekend. Yeah. So if it starts at like 12:30 in the afternoon, it should be over relatively quick into the Watkins Glen race. So, you know, I'll have it on. I mean, I fully expect a great race. Well, thank you, Sam. I appreciate it. Let's see. Another one. and I want to get a poll on this one, but it's about Fox Sports product. I personally think outside of the Clash, Fox Sports has improved a lot this year. Nowhere near where it used to be. I'm not saying it's great by any means, maybe not even good, but it's been very serviceable, which for the last couple of years of crap we've dealt with as fans, I'll take serviceable for now. So I want to know what you think. What do you think of Fox's 2024 production? There's definitely problems that need to be fixed. I am not absolving them of all sin here. But I'll give you 4 options. There's not really... I wish I could have that middle one. I guess, let's see. If I can spell. So, do you think it's way better? Do you think there's a little change? Why did it autocorrect to AI change? A little change. No change. Or way worse? I think there's been a little change. Not great, again, but better. I think that there still need to be direction changes, camera changes, stuff like that, but I don't think it's as bad. I think the booth is the big thing that's improved a ton with Harvick. Generally, Bowyer's been kept in check. Though him ruining Harvick and Mike Joy's moment was that was a sin. But I think it's been a little better. Let's see. Wow. So most of you think there's been a little change. And it's about tied with no change or way better. Only 1% of you say way worse. So we've hit rock bottom. We're bouncing back up. So we'll let the poll run for a little bit. Let's see what else we got. Realize we talked about a lot of these. There's a super chat here from Carl for 2. When did trucks start getting worse, in your opinion? I'd say around either right before or during the COVID side of things. Like, they had their bad races. They had their issues. But the truck series, I thought, in the late 2010s was one of, if not the best racing series to watch. I thought it was so fun to watch. There was always action. There was always something going on, great storylines, and it just kind of went off in the 20s. Weird to say. Yeah, I will agree. This is about Cup coverage, not trucks. Truck coverage is not the greatest by any means. We're in the poll there. About 70%. 69, nice. Saying a little change. What do you think the culprit is for the trucks? I think it's a lot of things. I think it's less experienced drivers, not as much veteran influence, the culture change the playoffs have created of just desperation to win at any means necessary, stuff like that. Does Fox lose the Coke 600 to Amazon Prime next year? Probably. I'd say so. I think they're going to put the 600 probably on Prime. I mean, Fox has 14 races, 12 points races, and 2 non-points races. They'll have the All-Star race, the Clash. I mean, they could take a week off for Easter again, but that would only put the Coke 600 still as the 13th race of the year. So I don't see them making a bunch of off weeks. I don't see the Daytona 500 being moved up a few weeks, or back, this week it would be February 18th. And if they were to make the 600 the 12th race, the 500 this year would have had to been moved to March 3rd. I don't see that happening. And I see them trying to draw people into the new partner. So that's what I personally think of it. Really quick, last thing that was really people wanted me to talk about, which I thought was weird. Before we get to the last little bit about Daytona, both races tomorrow, is iRacing, I guess. I mean, we got an e-ticket coming up on IDK Players channel that I'll be co-commentating with, which I love doing the commentary, even if I think I should definitely improve a lot more. But it is March 15th. I think it's a 2-day event because we'll have different stuff for qualifying too. But the main event is March 15th, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern on IDK's channel. I cannot wait for that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But I don't know how much really I have to say about it. I don't know the ins and outs of everything with iRacing, but I do know putting on events is a lot of fun. Having a lot of you guys out there is a ton of fun too. And I can't wait. Less than a month away. Hoosier Films, thank you for the 2. Why do you not like Truex as much as you used to? I don't think it's like I necessarily dislike him or like him less. I think I probably phrased that wrong. But I rooted for him more. You know, he was Dale Jr.'s teammate at the time. I rooted for all the DEI cars at the time. And, you know, he was, I think, a really talented driver who at the start of his career didn't reflect just how good he was. And I like that kind of underdog story to him. I think a lot of people don't like him now because he complains a lot. Most people do, though. I'm just reading what Malik put. Sorry. So I think it's more, I just don't root for really anyone in particular. I like McDowell, but it's not like if McDowell loses a race in a heartbreaking way, it's not going to break my heart the way, like, you know, if Dale Jr. losing 06 at Talladega would, or the 2011 600. Like, it's like Michael McDowell losing a race is not going to make me remember in 20 years and think, man, he was so close, you know, or like, you know, a Vikings bad loss or a Cubs bad loss or whatever you may. Especially Dale Jr. So I don't really root for anyone anymore. I root for the storylines. I root for the fun of it, and the racing aspect. I don't, you know, care as much about the championship, any stuff like that. I just have a lot of fun. I just like having fun with it, and it's a fun new way to look at it instead of just being a diehard fan the way I used to. And I still have the love for the sport of a fan. One thing I dislike about some people is that, like, you can tell they use the sport just as a job and they don't give a damn about what happens in it. They don't care who wins, they don't care who loses, they don't care about storylines, about ratings, about like anything having to do with the racing itself, just about them. And I just don't like that, you know. I like the idea of being a fan, loving it, but also being able to talk about it and make it not just a hobby. You know, kind of a balance of all. Really quick, did you guys see Eric was live at Daytona for Power Hour? Or it's more Power Half Hour because of the rain constraints and stuff like that. But that was pretty cool. I thought that was pretty cool. What are your thoughts on Legacy Motor Club and Toyota? Who do you love to see do a one-off cup race again? Who would I love to see? Dale Jr. is the obvious one, but probably more or less. Let's go with less obvious one. You know, with this car being so good at road courses, and with him being a way more talented driver than I think a lot of people give him credit for, I'd like to see Montoya get a shot in the next gen. I think he'd be really good. Like, I would love to see Juan Pablo Montoya race at the Roval. I just think that'd be badass, man. Where was the other part of the question? I'm sorry, like, went away from me. So I apologize. I'm definitely looking for it again. As for Legacy Motor Club and Toyota, good start. But I need to see more than just a super speedway one. Like, why not? No, why not Montoya? Like, I'd like to see Montoya or Ambrose. Like, I think that'd be really cool. I get people hated Montoya, but I'm sorry, he is one of the most talented drivers across all of racing ever, and NASCAR fans do not appreciate him. Lewis Hamilton would be good, but we're talking about former Cup guys. I would love to see Lewis Hamilton try a couple years in NASCAR. I do not think he'd be. I don't think any F1 driver coming over would dominate NASCAR, just as I don't think any NASCAR driver coming over to F1 would dominate F1. I'd like to see some of those guys come over at some point. Maybe Verstappen gets so upset about the way F1 is going, he comes over here, does a one-off. That'd be cool. Oh yeah, Robbie Gordon. Robbie Gordon is, if Robbie Gordon had raced today, I feel like he'd be the most hated man in the sport for the antics that he had. Chris, thank you for the 5. As a fellow Junior fan, what do you think of his next what his next gig is going to be? If not NBC, I'd love to see him solely dedicate to the Xfinity Series announcing. I think he'll be back at NBC. If not, I'd like to see him go to Fox and replace Boyer. I think Harvick Jr. and Mike Joy in a booth would vastly improve Fox's standing with the fans and their general production. But I think he'll be back with NBC. He's not going to have to do any of the Xfinity Series races unless he wants to. So he's got 14 weeks with Cup. He can focus on the other stuff with Dirty Mo, family stuff, whatever. I think that would be the best one. But as for the biggest stuff, and I swear, I thought we were going to go 30 to 40 minutes, and we ended up going an hour. So I hope you enjoyed. As for Daytona tomorrow, I am fully expecting the Xfinity race to not be too wild until the very end. I am expecting the Cup race to actually have maybe not a wreck fest, but I don't think we're going to. Crazy prediction, not putting it on the ones for the podcast. I don't think we're going to have green flag stops tomorrow for the 500. I think we're going to be looking at shorter runs. I think the handling is starting to become more of an issue, and it's going to throw some drivers for a loop. And these cars probably aren't set up for exactly what the conditions are going to be. So that's my wild prediction for it. But I'm really looking forward to it. Anything else though that you guys want us to talk about when it comes to RTA stuff like that? Monday ratings. We'll talk about it on the podcast. I do think the ratings will be down. That's just part of being delayed, but is what it is. We're getting the race in. That's what matters. And I guess one last question from one wise guy. When's NWP gonna have Bologna Burger as a guest again? Well, we have a guest lined up. We have 2 guests lined up for March. One returning one and one new guest. We don't want to say who it is just yet. We'll get closer to it and we'll let you know. But as for Bologna Burger, we definitely got to get him back on. He was a ton of fun to have on. So, if our schedules line up, I would love to say this year. But yes, we will have guests coming on the podcast again. Really quick, let's get to 200 likes before we end this baby off. We'll talk about Honda more. We talked about it actually Wednesday night, which, by the way, want to credit all of you who showed up to that one. Wednesday night was the most watched live audience we've had in a couple of years. So thank you guys for waiting us out through qualifying and coming out and having a lot of fun with us. We appreciate it a ton. We should let you know. I want to let you guys know now. So all thanks to you guys on that one. But guys, I am going to sign off for the night. I will be back tomorrow, I promise, after both races. And I appreciate you coming out tonight. So you guys enjoy the rest of your night, and let's have a ton of racing fun tomorrow. So until next time, have a good one. Later.